helping these younger tattoo artists financially early on, it's going to reap a benefit for the entire tattoo community. I really, really believe that. These guys are the future.
All right, welcome to the Artful Dollar podcast. It's me, Ryan, tattoo artist, financial coach, seeker of wisdom and anything I can find useful. And I am really excited about this conversation. I met this individual at the Evergreen Tattoo Invitational. He's actually one of the co-producers, owners, people that run the whole show. And we were standing by a truck and we were having a conversation about tattooing and about the business of tattooing, about the past and the future. And there was a couple people standing around us and we were just getting this feeling like this is a conversation that everyone in tattooing needs to hear. So I am excited to bring Riley Smith on to the Artful Dollar podcast. Welcome, Riley.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me. I appreciate it. That conversation that we were having was a spark, wasn't it? That lit a fire in you. I could tell.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. And if I try to think about what it was about it that lit a spark, was that you were speaking from years of experience in the tattoo industry. You opened up a shop and had your truck blown up by the biker gang down the block.
Yeah, somebody blew it up. I don't know who did it.
Somebody, right? No parties blamed here.
No,
but yet you also very much so have a view of the future of tattooing that I really enjoyed. It was a very, open, forward thinking. You weren't resisting anything. You were adapting to change. And I think that's ultimately what all businesses need to do. You're also a very savvy entrepreneur yourself, which I love talking to other entrepreneurs that know what the fuck they're talking about from experience, not because they have some MBA or something like that, but they've actually boots on the ground, fucking in the dirt, in the trenches, made it happen. And you have a very successful track record of that. So that's why I wanted to bring you on the podcast.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all that. That's wonderful. Yeah, I get very passionate when I talk about that. Obviously, that passion struck you. And I'm more than willing to have those conversations out in the open most of the time. Tattooing is changing so rapidly, and minute to minute, day to day, the renaissance of tattooing is happening right now, this second. But not just with tattoos, in every single facet of tattooing, it's changing so rapidly, it's hard to keep up. Whether it be business, money management, the general attitude of the customers, the clients, the shops, all of the above. The equipment is changing, the ink is changing, and it's just become mandatory from coming from a little street shop, almost 2 decades ago to where we're at now. It is night and day. And I see there are some people that do get that, and there's some people that don't get that. And the ones that don't aren't going to ever get it. And so, good. Stay right there. That's fine. Thanks for my competition.
Yeah, and I think what I like too about talking to you and what I try to do is I'm not really trying to convince anyone of anything.
No, I don't want to.
I have experience and I have views and maybe I'm wrong, but if anything I have to say or you have to say resonates, then I think that's valuable. And so anyone listening to this, we're just speaking from experience and from what we see might be coming down the pipeline. And if you take any advice, great. And if you don't, great. There's no worries,
Well, advice is the optimum word there. In this world that we're in, where there's so many different optics that you can look into, where do you get good advice? What can you trust the advice you're getting? I mean, that's the thing. Things were passed down piecemeal at best when we started tattooing, probably. You kind of barely got a grasp of what was really going on in the shop, let alone the street or the town you were in or the world. Now tattooing is a global industry. And I don't believe that you can just sit in your shop and hide anymore. It's actually becoming more part of a problem than not being involved is part of a problem now.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do is openly engage with tattooers about conversations about advancing tattooing as much as possible. We coined the phrase over here at Evergreen that, we try to leave tattooing better than we found it every time we encounter it, if we can. And I think people need to hear that, whether they've been tattooing for 2 decades or they've been tattooing for 2 months. And especially this younger generation, I really believe that they get dogged on a whole bunch, but I just don't see it that way. This new generation is saving tattooing. They're not destroying it in any way. They're so much faster and more talented. They're more savvy with the equipment, with the technology. People like them more than us. They're not scared of them when they come in and buy a tattoo. They can relate. They show up on time. They work hard. What they won't do is what we did. And I think that's kind of what I admire about them. They won't come in and work 14 hours a day, 30 days in a row and kill themselves and destroy their relationships with their families and pick up a drug addiction and alcoholism. They won't
and
compromise
that. You're describing the entire beginning of my tattoo career.
Absolutely.
Like working 60 plus hours a week, drugs and alcohol were the glue that kept the shop together that I worked at. Like if there was no cocaine and whiskey, everyone would have just killed each other basically.
Absolutely. That's, but it's a testament that's deeper than that. Like I was at a show and a guy came up and asked us how it felt to be the old timers. And the guy I was with was like, I'm 42 years old, man. Like I'm not an old timer. In a way though, even at 42, you can be an old timer in this business because so many of us got wiped out, quit, left, went to prison, picked up drug addictions, never made it. This new generation can see that so clearly. And it's easy to dog them because they won't do what we used to do. My interpretation, especially with like my apprentices or people that I'm trying to help along, I don't want them to experience a gunfight in the tattoo shop or their car getting blown up in the driveway or them having to fucking get stabbed at a bar simply because they work at a place that's different than the place down the street. They shouldn't have to work 12 and 14-hour days to survive. They shouldn't have to work 7 days a week. It's not necessary in this day and age. And to tell them that they're not up to par because they're not dumb enough to do that doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me at all.
It's a very different perspective because I work with a lot of shop owners and I hear from a lot of shop owners. They're like, man, these new tattooers, they just don't work as hard. They don't grind. They don't hustle. And I did kind of fall victim to being like, yeah, I work fucking hard. I grind it out. I fucking get it done. But that isn't for everyone. And it really is like, what is the life that you're looking to live both now and in the future? And so you can't just sacrifice yourself completely now for something. Because you're right. A lot of people get burnt out. There's a lot of mental illness. There's a lot of things that people struggle with and it wipes them out.
How long can you keep up that pace? How long can you keep up that pace? A year? 5? 8? That's some of these guys coming into this business are basically babies to us. They're 18 or 19 or 20 years old. They have 10 times more talent than anybody we ever worked with at that thing. They're pulling down great numbers and doing great tattoos and advancing. By the time they're a 2-year artist, they're like a 6 or 7-year artist compared to what we were. And how long can they keep up a pace of 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, all go, no quit? So that mentality of mine changed a long, long, long time ago. And that's why I have artists that have been working for me for 10 or 12 years at the same shop. And they're doing just fine. And they're still advancing and they're still making more money. But they're not burning out. They're not quitting. They're not dying. And that's awesome. That's amazing. I think it's something that the tattoo industry needs to embrace. So when I'm talking with my friends that have been doing this a long time and they go, this generation won't do this or won't do that. Sometimes I sit back and I just listen and I go, okay. Other times I just kind of go, it's good that they won't do that. It's good that they want to change it. I think the advancement in tattooing is way more than the equipment or the ink or anything else that's going on. It's in us too. You deal with people financially and on all kinds of capacities. I know that, but finances is something that I sat through your class at Evergreen and I thought it was one of the best classes I've taken in years. It was to the point. It made sense. It was easy to interpret. It wasn't some creepy kind of sales pitch or anything. You were speaking from the heart and you were coming from a point, whether scripted or not, where it was like you generally have concern over these people's future. And I just love that. I get it. But so many shop owners and more experienced artists don't get that. Sometimes because they've already made it and they kind of don't think about it. Or other times, maybe I've seen a lot of times a 15, 20-year veteran of tattooing that's actually a little more embarrassed that they don't have the finances squared away or they're not ready to go. And they don't want to telegraph that. I understand that.
Yeah, I've had people message me and say, Ryan, I've been meaning to reach out to you. I've been meaning to book a call. And honestly, I've just been kind of like ashamed that like my shit's not together. And I'm like, that's why I'm here. Because I saw the future. I was like, man, I'm not prepared for retirement, buying a house, owning a business, paying taxes or anything. What happens 25 years from now when you have a generation of old tattooers with crooked backs and they can't do what they did to provide for themselves and they don't have any, like, that's a generation of homelessness, mental illness, dependency on their family. We see, and I'm not hating on this at all, but like there's a lot of GoFundMe accounts instead of emergency funds. What about a Me Fund Me account? Like when shit happens, and shit always happens. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Being in the position to not have to depend on a GoFundMe account. Again, no hate. If that's where you're working with, like, yeah, do it. But that peace of mind that comes to that, I think that actually gets put into the art, the energy, the safety. I definitely became a better artist when I knew that I could say no to tattoos that I didn't want to do because I wasn't depending on that money to pay next month's rent. I had 2 months, 3 months, 4 months ahead, and then I could be a better artist. So I think I view finance as like my responsibility as an artist to handle that part of the business so that I can be a better artist, an all-around better business professional as a holistic practice.
I get it. I totally agree entirely. At Evergreen, you did a thing where you went around and you got little snippets about advice for new tattoo artists. And I believe I said, don't be a pussy and get out your checkbook was my only advice, which that might have went over the head of a lot of people. But, just to break that down, don't be a pussy. You have got to put yourself in positions where you're learning and advancing all the time. And that is very uncomfortable for people to take time away from the shop, travel to some far off destination, sit through classes for hours on end around these interesting people, let your guard down and expose the fact that you're not as knowledgeable as you are, to be open and honest. All of that is not being a pussy, putting yourself in a position where you're learning and growing, whether you've been doing this for 2 months or 20 years. That's hard for people to do in general. That's why when there's a master class of some time, there's 30 people there from around the world or 60 people. That seems outrageous that little amount of people are showing up for those things. And then get out your checkbook. Get out your checkbook's very simple. If you want to grow and master this and get better at anything, it's going to cost you. Whether it's financial or time or emotional, it's going to cost you. So get ready.
I always tell people, you pay for the lessons no matter what. It's just, did you pay for it with money or did you pay for it with time and energy?
Absolutely.
I'd rather pay someone that's already made the mistake than actually learn from it. Because, and then I get bad advice from someone. It is bad advice from someone in the shop that doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about is more expensive than paying someone that knows what they're talking about. Because you're going to take that bad advice and it's going to cost you down the line.
I tell people to beware of outside influence all the time and be cautious of outside influence, whether it's, somebody that's reputable or not. Always be cautious because, simply people have motives. I see a lot in this industry of motives inside the tattoo shop when you have someone that's young and trying to advance. I've seen motives where they don't want that. They don't want them to go out in the world and find out that things are different in other shops or that they can make more money or they can be better tattoo artists. Because simply maybe that tattoo shop is designed around the fact that tattoo artist A, his name is on the moniker and he's the best tattoo artist and he's taking all the great tattoos and you're simply there to do the stuff he doesn't want to do. So why does he want to have that? You elevate yourself and take that competition. It doesn't help him. I know other shop owners that I've counseled regularly that I have to auto-correct where they're like, well, why would you want to have these people make more money or become a better tattoo artist? They'll just leave and be competition. And that's been a viable fear in tattooing for probably 60 years. My mentor was pretty hardcore and he was very intelligent and he taught me a lot of things out of the gate that helped me. He knew how to teach me. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of great mentor I have. He wasn't just spitting out stuff. He figured out who I was and adapted it for my attitude. He would tell me, Riley, put yourself in a position where no one can compete with you. Aren't their wildest fucking dreams? And the only way they're competing with you is if you're in competition. If you are, go for it. But it's very true. Like, build a tattoo career that's bulletproof. Get better all the time. Become financially secure. Financially secure it just equals freedom is what it is. It's freedom and peace of mind. He was smart and he taught me those things all those years ago and I took them to heart. But now today, it doesn't seem like that wasn't the code of the day. The code of the day was you can make enough money to get your cocaine, you'll be fine. That was the code of the day.
Yeah.
And get tough so you don't get beat up. Now it's completely different. It's completely different. And helping these younger tattoo artists financially early on, it's going to reap a benefit for the entire tattoo community. I really, really believe that. These guys are the future. And I don't know how many it is, but I'm seeing artists at the 15, 20-year level that are taking these incredibly brave back steps where they are starting to go to seminars and they are starting. Some of these guys, 15 years in the business, and they've never done tattoo shows. They've never done classes. They've never seeked out financial advice. I work with different tattoo artists on a very private level and very personal level. And I just worked with a guy that had been in the business 17 years and he had never paid taxes all that time. And now it was time to grow up. I showed him how to file his back taxes. We contacted the IRS and took care of all. I showed him how to create revenue streams, how his credit worked, get it all. It just terrified him, every bit of it.
Yeah.
Every bit of it. It wasn't a matter of 3 months before he started seeing benefits from that. Now he's in a position where he's like, wow, I've got more money and resources than I ever knew. But he was taught all those years. He wasn't taught those benefits. He was just taught that it was scary. Or I'm working with another guy now that he's 12 years in the business. He just started doing tattoo shows and started doing classes and started doing online. It scares him. It terrifies him because he's like, well, that's going to cost this much money and I'm not going to get that money back. And maybe I won't learn anything. And with the mindset changing, he doesn't have to learn everything. He has to learn 1%. A really smart businessman, he told me one time, create 1% change every single day, period. No matter what.
I've heard that.
Just 1%. And I took that to heart.
Best advice, yeah.
Literally taking the business cards that are on the counter and going, maybe they're better over here. And that's the 1% you do that day. That may be the change. But at the end of the year, you got 365 degrees of change.
You don't. You have more.
You have more. You have
because
so much more.
Compounded.
Yeah.
It's 1% compounding on 1% every day. So you don't have 365. I mean, if I broke out a compound interest calculator, it's like over 1,000% change.
Absolutely. And it's like, even if the changes move the business cards from one side of the counter and back, and then you come in the next day and go, nope, they were fine where they were. As far as I'm considering, you're doubling down right there. You're learning.
Everything big, everything worth creating. And I would say like a life where you have more than you need to just survive, a life where you have freedom to own your time, your autonomy, your agency to live life. You're going on vacation soon. Like a life where you have those options, I think that's a big life. And anything big, a big business, a big life is created one grain of sand at a time. You don't move 1,000 tons by trying to push it. People think that's what you have to do and then they don't try at all. But it's like, actually, you just break it apart. One grain of sand at a time every day is how you move 1,000 tons.
I consider myself super fortunate, not lucky, mind you. My mom, my wife and my mom would say that we're lucky, but I don't consider myself lucky at all. However, exactly what you were talking about, I was talking about the morals that were instilled in me, fundamentals that were so far advanced then. I was taught to achieve goals, to create goals on a small basis, daily basis, and yearly basis, and decade basis. And when I sat with my mentor and I was an apprentice all those years ago, I said, what's the end game? What's the end game here? And he simply said, if you can get to a point where you can tattoo what you want, when you want, you're halfway there. And then I said, okay, well, when I achieve that, then what? And he goes, put yourself in a position where you don't have to tattoo and enjoy your life. And that's it. That's all he told me. Now, I've got to tell you, and I'm not trying to put myself in a position where I'm trying to brag or anything like that, but I thought about putting myself in the right position and have done that through my tattoo career as best as I could, as well as trying to help people along and not be a fucking sellout, So with that being in mind, it started with, I got to get better at tattooing to make the money. And then, of course, we're running this tattoo shop and it's a business. And what advancements do you get from that? And as I started advancing through the tattoo business, making more money and becoming better at it and dealing with more artists and getting more clients and stuff like that, I came to a realization there's a lot more going on to this business than this. I literally just started thinking about my son and about how I grew up versus how he grew up or how he's going to grow up. And I wanted to manifest a life for him that wasn't going to be anything that I had to deal with. Just like with the younger tattoo artists, I want to manifest a tattoo career for them that's better than what I had to do, which is what you're supposed to do generationally. You're supposed to carry the torch. With that being said, just fundamental, easy, smart business moves along the way led to these great big moves that would probably seem very challenging to a lot of people. But because we did the groundwork and the exercise, when we make a big move, it's really not that hard anymore. Now, making the right move might be a little tougher because you can lose a lot. You're gambling. So when Joshua Carlton and I got together and we thought up Evergreen, that was a pretty revolutionary idea, or so we thought. But we both made the calculations and we made the moves and we did it. And thankfully today, I'm very proud of the fact that Evergreen is, a great tattoo show. And I think it's advanced a lot of tattooing in general. With our businesses, with me and Aaron, with our tattoo companies, we've taken our tattoo companies and we've moved it in these directions that were really just unthinkable. For a while there, I was really into local city politics because I lived downtown and downtown was kind of a dump and we were making these renovations. And so I started going to city hall meetings and stuff like that. That rapidly worked into me being the art commissioner for this city for 8 years. So I went from that to that. I didn't think tattooing would take me into being an art commissioner for the city. That's pretty outlandish for a guy like me.
I didn't think tattooing was going to take me into finance. I mean, absolutely. Tattooing can take you into amazing places that you don't predict. Yeah.
But all of those little moves and stuff accumulated into these other things where it's trying to secure a future for my son and my family became something more than accumulating money. It turned into accumulating property and buildings and becoming a part of the community. And then I'm sure you talk a lot about, passive revenue and things like that. I never ever dreamed in a million years that I would own an ice cream store, but I do. I own an ice cream shop, and it's
I loved what you were saying about the ice cream shop. You're I don't know fuck all about ice cream.
No, I know how to eat it.
But I know, and you just, anyway, I like the way you put it.
But creating these passive revenues are something that I had to learn along the way, and it took 17 years to figure that out. These new tattoo artists, these new kids that are coming out, they need to learn this stuff in 7 weeks and get going. Think of how far advanced tattooing can become if these guys don't have 10 or 15-year window to get there. If they've got a 10-month or 5-year window to get there, it's going to advance all of us, every one of us.
I think a lot of younger tattooers are coming into tattooing with this already preconceived notion that this is going to be something I do that will lead me to something else. Whereas a lot of older generations, I definitely came into tattooing thinking this is just what I do for the rest of my life. Yep. I think there's kind of already a mentality of I want to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I hear it. I hear people, I know it because I talk to a lot of younger tattooers and they're yeah, I want to do this. But I talked to someone the other day. She wants to create a more artist community and a bigger, and she's doing it. She's not just talking about it. She's literally doing it. I just see there's a bigger perspective that people have already from the beginning when they come into tattooing.
Absolutely. I just love it.
If you've been enjoying this episode or found my podcast helpful and you think other people would benefit from listening, then all I ask in return is please leave a quick review or subscribe. It'll take just 1 minute and it might help other tattooers and artists find this podcast and help them. So please, it would mean the world to me and it might make a difference for someone else. Thanks.
Also, old dog, new tricks, because some people are getting into this career and they're a lot later in their life too. They're not all kids. Some of these new tattooers are 35 or 40 years old. And
absolutely,
if you think that's an outrageous possibility, just go talk with Bob Tyrell for a while. He'll tell you all about it, So you're not too old to get into this business and be a new guy. Although a lot of those guys have an advantage because of their age. People just assume they'd been in the shop for 20 years. But the fact is I'm seeing tattooing not as a huge percent, but I would say 15 to 20% of these new tattooers that are coming in are over the age of 30. This is their second career. And it was my second career as a tattoo artist. That a lot,
yeah.
I retired as a Teamster when I was 30 years old and got into tattooing. That's how I did it. It was my second career. I'd already retired when I got into this. I just started doing this for fun. So I think that new generation mixing with that other generation, but still being new tattooers, it's kind of an older brother, younger brother kind of situation in the shop, and I love it. I love it. It's really reinforcing itself. Are you seeing a lot of pushback from new artists that are succeeding in tattooing, but I guess pushback's not the right word. Are you seeing resentment from artists that are really excelling in tattooing artistically really well right now, but financially they're just on the rocks all the time? Are you seeing a lot of that, or is that kind of a sporadic thing, or what's your opinion on that?
So new tattooers that are excelling but are just struggling financially. Oh, we see that. That's rampant. That's
It is.
that's
It's
huge.
a rampant
So if
thing.
that's you,
Okay.
that you're not alone.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's basically who we serve. Older tattooers, we serve newer tattooers, and the numbers are pretty big. Maybe 10% of tattooers overall that I speak to are like feeling pretty solid financially. Like they know they could be doing better, but like they're feeling pretty solid. Maybe they own a house and they've been paying taxes for a while and they kind of get how the game's meant to be played and they play the money game and they're winning at it. Maybe 10%.
Really?
Maybe.
Okay. So
But beyond that, it's just degrees of struggling with it. And then older tattooers, I mean, there are tattooers that are in the game 30 years that are now not just considering, but are literally just getting a second job.
Yeah.
Because they aren't adapting to the changes and they know it and they're struggling with that. What do you say to someone who's like, Riley, the tattoo industry is oversaturated. It's because of all these new tattooers and these tattoo schools and all this stuff. Like, what do you say to that?
I say that the places that are least regulated in this country are the most saturated because you can just flip a rock over and become a tattoo artist, and why not? And
Right, because you're in Oregon.
Yeah, I'm in Oregon, so I'm very fortunate to be in Oregon. We've had a regulation since 1992, and it regulates who can do this and who can't, and that's a very fortunate thing for us. If you come into the Oregon market, if you come into the market that I'm in right now, it'll blow you away what your competition's going to be. They're going to smoke you.
So would you say there's fewer tattooers, but the tattooers that are there are higher quality?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
And that's because of the regulation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because not anybody can just breeze in here and pretend like they're a tattoo artist and go to work. You're going to have to go into a competitive market that's seriously competitive and serious hardcore. And all the state has done is created a licensure that proves that you're a tattoo artist. That's it. And if the proof that you're a tattoo artist is that you've been doing a terrible job somewhere for 10 years, that's not going to cut it. You're going to have to pay your taxes. You're going to have to be a human being. You're going to have to be a citizen. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to find that controversial and it should be like this and it should be like that.
Apprenticeships only and no tattoo school. Riley, what are you saying? This is blasphemy, Riley.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah. Well, I have apprenticeships. I have an apprenticeship program. It's fucking fantastic. I've been doing it for a long time and I love it. The only difference is that we're regulated, which means we have oversight. And if I wanted to really get into that, I'd love to, but that's not for this show. But I mean, in a nutshell, I don't think the old school apprenticeship was as nostalgic as people think. It was pretty terrible. Sometimes an old school apprenticeship would last 2 or 3 years and you would learn what you could have learned in 8 weeks. I don't like slavery. So I think working for free sucks. I think that's terrible. And riding a counter and fetching hot dogs and cocaine is not very conducive to learning about tattooing because that's how it used to be. The nostalgic old school tattoo apprenticeship was pretty terrible. It was like quit your job, lose your life, become a slave, join a gang. And that was
hazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you took all of this stuff that's fun that we laugh about, that whatever, if you took that and narrowed it down to what are you really teaching these people about tattooing and how dedicated are you to making these people and better tattooing and advancing their life and advancing the tattoo industry, just how much time does that take? How much can you focus on that compared to what you went through? And that's the key. There are a lot of charlatans in this business.
People think they went through so much hard shit. And so they feel like the newer generation should have to for some reason.
So let me give you an example. I'm a real teacher. I own a real school, and this is a real business that I run. Periodically, all the teachers in the state have to get together for different seminars. We all go to the state capitol and we get together and we work on different protocols and learn different things and better ways to teach and write curriculum and so on. We're there and we're changing the curriculum so that it can be more open, so that the instructors that are teaching apprentices can basically, the state just kind of got out of the way and let us advance on our own, which I think was one of the most brilliant things they ever did. So
that's awesome.
There's 20 or 30 of my peers there, and they're trying to explain that we can write the curriculum more open and modernized without having to stick to the old structures of tattooing. And some of the guys just aren't getting it. And the lady that's trying to explain this to us, she has to explain it in kind of a legal means. You know what I mean? She's a representative of the Board of Education for the state of Oregon. So she can't just tell us what she needs to tell us. She has to kind of go around it a little bit. So she goes, Riley, can you help me? I said, sure. So here's your example. I go, how can I help? And she goes, tell me about your needle making process. And I go, I would love to teach you about my needle making class. Let's just go through it. Rule number 1, we never ever make needles, period, under any fucking circumstances at all, ever.
It's a good class.
The guy next to me, who I'd known for, 25 years, we live in the same town. He's like this, and he goes, you don't teach people how to make needles. And I was like, why in the hell would I do that? No, lesson 1, never do that. And he goes into it, which I'm not faulting him. He's just doing what he was taught. He goes, well, how can you be a tattoo artist if you don't make needles? Like, I had to make needles for 40 hours and I burned my fingers and I breathed in a bunch of toxins and I stabbed myself and I made a huge mess. And I had to sit there and do that. That was part of my apprenticeship. That was a milestone in passing in my apprenticeship. And I was like, do you make needles now? Did you ever make them again? What you didn't learn the lesson of needles. Making needles is dangerous, toxic, unnecessary, a waste of time. Time is money in this business. If I've got you wasting an hour making needles, you just cost $200 to yourself. What are you doing? It's
not business savvy.
He says, well, at least I could make needles if I was on a desert island. And so I come back and I go, okay, so just to understand your logic, my dad put cigarettes out on me when I was a fucking kid. So I'm supposed to put cigarettes out on my fucking kids because that's the way I see it. The milestones and things that we were taught that were basic knowledge then are absolutely obsolete now. You do not have to know how to build a carburetor to be a safe driver. And that's where we're at. I think of that a lot. I think of those things a lot. Like, what is absolutely unnecessary? I need to teach you about the 15 different types of configurations of needles and why they have curved mags and why they have straight mags and all of those protocols that make sense and show you the artistic reasons why, and then expose you to what kind of amazing art you can produce depending on what kind of artist you are. I would much rather focus my time on that than put you in the alley with a soldering iron and ignore you for 40 hours.
Maybe take 5 to 10 minutes to just explain to people what went into it and how ridiculous it is to feel the need to do it now. Honor the fact that people did it at one point and be grateful for the fact that you don't have to do it anymore.
That's where we're at. Nobody I know that I work with in tattooing, well, I can't say that. I know a couple people that can, but nobody I know can put the reins and saddle on a horse properly. And I'm sure there's plenty of great anecdotes about horses and wonderful stuff. 100 years ago, you'd have to ride a horse to work. Everybody knew how to do that by the time they were 4 years old. That was just a mainstay. And we could talk about how that would be necessary for driving a car, but it's not.
Yeah, someone was telling me someone at their shop was complaining about rotaries or some new thing. And they're like, oh, so did you ride your horse and buggy to work today?
Yeah, it's the same thing. We are in a legitimate tattoo business. If you want to be in a legitimate tattoo business and you want to be a professional, this is not a hobby. It's not an anecdote anymore.
But I think some of the old school mentality, and I know people get on me for this, I think the mentality is very much of a hobby mentality.
Sure. It is.
It's
and
like,
I hope they don't change
good
it.
Art. Right. Don't change. Make good art. And that's all you need to do to have a successful business. That's a hobby. That's your grandma in the back making mittens. Your grandma makes some dope ass mittens, right? But she's not trying to market them. She's not trying to organize and structure her business to show as a professional. She's just making really dope mittens and maybe people buy them and maybe they don't. That's a hobbyist mentality.
I don't try to fight with any people that are doing stuff like that. When they're like, I tattoo with this antiquated way and this antiquated style with this antiquated equipment because I'm for real. Like I said, I just go, hell yeah, don't change a thing. Don't change a thing.
Yeah.
You're 22% of my market base that walks into my store instead of yours. Don't change a thing. Just keep doing that. The justice comes in all forms. They'll have to decide how they're going to run their tattoo career and run their business. But I'm not going to let that dictate terms of mine. Like, I just don't believe in slowing down at all. So it's like when I do see that, I think about, it phases itself out. It phases itself out.
Yeah, I had someone tell me he was a really solid traditional tattooer, we were talking about marketing, and he was just saying, I just feel like if I do all these things that people are doing, somehow if I get successful from it, and I know I probably would, that it would somehow feel like it's a gimmick. Okay. And that like my work didn't speak for itself. My work wasn't why people came. It was because I did some email marketing or SEO or something in that. And it was interesting.
I get that. I totally get that. That's actually pretty legitimate. If he, feels like it, it just doesn't feel real to him if he's doing it in a certain way. I totally understand that because, that's how you feel. That's how you feel. So feel that way. Make some money and keep going. We all feel, and I talked about, don't be a pussy. Get out your checkbook. That's exactly what we're talking about. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable. You're supposed to feel unsure. You're supposed to be like, am I faking it now? Is it real? All of those fears are totally confirmed, but don't stop. If you're not changing because you're afraid of those fears, then there's nothing I can do to help you or say anything to you. All I can do is convince you that you're going to have to learn to swim and you're going to get wet. And here we go. So
yeah, I like the Dan Sullivan quote. He's like, fear is pissing your pants. Courage is pissing your pants and doing it anyway.
That's where we're at. And like I said, it's not too late to learn new things. And I'm not trying to dog anybody who's, tattooing in an antiquated way. That's not my goal here at all. I'm just pointing out that
there's all kinds of traditions that
but the traditions of tattooing were set for 1911 and 1920 and 1930 and 1955, and then here we are in this galactic age that we're in, and people are trying to revert back to that. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, but I'm not going to, and I'm not going to endorse that with people that I'm trying to mentor and help. I'm not going to go.
Speaking of the galactic age, the AI class that we took at the Evergreen Invitational blew my fucking mind.
I if you don't mind, I know Garrett wouldn't mind me speaking about him. We're dear personal friends, and Garrett's one of my favorite people and one of my favorite tattoo artists on the planet. And he's been tattooing, 25 years, something like that. And he went through the same thing that we're talking about. Years back, about 5, maybe 6 years ago, he decided I have to make the change here. And he changed everything about how he tattooed, how he ran his corporation, what he did with his artists, how he does everything. Garrett's been around a long time, and here he is teaching these cutting edge techniques of tattooing. His class on AI blew me away. And I'm not a robot guy. You, sir, are the 17th email I've ever received in my life.
When I met you, one of the things you told me was that you had recently sent your first email your entire life. Yeah. And I couldn't believe my ears, but you said it so honestly and humbly. You're just like, I'm learning to do email. I'm just like,
Yeah, I know I do all this stuff and things, but I cannot do the robot. I can't do it.
You're not someone that naturally adapts new technology, and it takes something for you to do it, and it's probably uncomfortable, and it seems like you're doing it anyway.
I suffer from terrible learning dyslexia. My type of dyslexia makes me blind with technology. I can't make anything work. It's very difficult for me to make anything function. So,
look, you're here on this podcast, so congrats.
I made it that far. But it is just like being blind. I can still do everything. I just have to either have someone help me, do it for me, or I have to learn some kind of a system that works for me. So, which it's not a disadvantage in any way. The price I pay for that is that I'm not able to do as much things as instantly as other people do. I send a lot of cat photos when you message me or stuff back.
Right. That's how we first communicated, was cat memes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's very common for me. Other people will get it when you're like, oh, I sent Riley a picture of a boat. And he goes, oh, okay, you're going swimming. Or, it's like code after a while. The advantage of that is I have a tremendous memory and I remember everything. I can talk about so many subjects and different things. I educate myself constantly and keep my memory very, very, very sharp. I've been sober for 16 years. I'm very proud of that. No drugs, no alcohol or anything. And part of a lot of times in a program, you do meditation. I'm not a hippie, so I don't do meditation. But what I do is get up at 3 a.m. and I just pick a subject and study it for an hour or an hour and a half. And I just study whatever that subject is randomly, just to increase my knowledge base. So,
like what kinds of things do you study?
Like right now, the last week, every day I've gotten up about 3 a.m. and I've researched every facet of every location that I'm going to over the next 2 weeks while I'm in Europe. I've studied every street. I've studied every restaurant. I've studied paths for getting from one place to another. train routes, customs, local
Wow.
folklore.
Wow.
I will dive in the deep end of reconnaissance if I'm on a traveling trip. So, next week I'll be in London for 4 days, then Edinburgh for 4 days, then Paris for 4 days. I'm going to go over to Disneyland for a couple of days. Those of you that know me know I'm a Disney freak. I go everywhere. But I've studied everything that I can study about those neighborhoods, everything that I can. And so that's my topic this week, is studying those cities, But other times it may be something as simple as, I might see something on History Channel and I'll just be like, well, that's an interesting little anecdote. Let's follow up on that. Like whatever the case is.
Would you consider yourself, you're a seeker, a student of life? You're really looking to absorb information. Is that something you always were, or is that something you developed?
Yeah, because because of my learning disabilities, I was school was very, very difficult for me. It was very tough. And I had to negotiate school. I'm intelligent, so I know how to get around things because of my disabilities. For instance, in high school, you have to have so many regular classes and so many electives and reach these benchmarks in school. I'm very smart, so I did a little bit of research and I wondered why the athletes didn't have to do that, or the kids in the theater class. So I went in and negotiated my high school career. So instead of doing regular high school stuff, I did Riley stuff and it worked. Things like that. So it's like, because I can't rely on a lot of education, I couldn't rely on reading something to find something out when I was younger. I had to remember it. So I just kept myself sharp. I kept myself studying on things all the time. So, I grew up in a tough town here, in a tough neighborhood, and being tough, not good enough. You have to be intelligent too, and that's just the way it is. I'm sure you can relate. If you worked in any street shops, you better be sharp. You got it.
You got to be sharp and you got to be tough.
Yep.
And sometimes I felt like I've always, and I feel like I can identify like being intelligent, but I didn't like school. I didn't do well with school. I didn't like reading books. But I'm very intelligent. I like to learn. Maybe I just don't like the conformity of our traditional school system. But
I wouldn't make it through a school.
Sometimes people are maybe threatened by intelligence, or I don't know. I feel like I would go to a lot of shops and I just didn't really feel like I fit in. I felt like I wasn't whatever mold I was supposed to fit as a tattooer. And so I never felt at home for the first 8 years of tattooing, working in various shops. And I don't really know what it was. I'm a compassionate, caring, intelligent person. And I'm not saying that those things aren't present in shops, but that is who I am. And that was why eventually I opened up my own shop. I just didn't experience a lot of like-minded people in the shops that I was at. That's all.
Well, I mean, it goes back to how we started this podcast. You and me talking by the truck around some people. There's something that happens there. We gravitated over there and had a conversation, and it was like, oh, good, breath of fresh air. We can talk about some real stuff.
And when I separated myself from those people, those groups, and started to seek out connections, like people like you, like that's really where my life started to expand. I would say, like, if there was anything I could recommend anyone, is like the people you normally surround yourself with are going to dictate the direction of your life.
Yeah.
Like almost more than anything.
Interesting you say that. One of the things that I try to pass on to other people is 7 out of every 10 people that you probably shouldn't associate with in any way, which sounds pretty hard, but it's true. 7 out of 10 people, they may even be nice people. They may like you. They may do things for you. You may do things for them. But the reality of it is they're not conducive to your life. I've done this
doesn't mean they're bad or wrong or anything, but I would agree with that.
If you're not on guard with that, you're putting yourself in a precarious situation. I keep my circle very, very, very small. And I keep the people around me I cherish and hold, and take care of them, and they take care of me. But outside of that circle, they're basically just somebody passing by. And that sounds cold, but I mean, that's part of the reality for my sobriety and my recovery. But it's also just a good way to go through life.
If you're serious about taking control of your money and your financial future, I have 2 seminars that I want to share with you. These are completely free. You can find the link down in the show notes. One is on a 3-step marketing formula that has helped tattooers earn thousands more per month and honestly reshapes the entire way that you think about marketing yourself. and the other goes in depth into a blueprint that you can follow to create financial stability as an artist earning a regular income so that you can properly deal with taxes, save and invest for the future, and buy a house, and retirement, and all that fun stuff. So just check out the links in the show notes to get the recordings of these free seminars.
I recently had a person ask me about kind of like, they weren't a younger artist, but they're in a position where they're seeking fame. To be honest, they're just seeking fame. They want to be famous and they want to get notarized and they want to get validated. And I was amazed that they had so much courage just to come up and start talking about that. Cause I was like, whoa, that's, pretty bold. But, somehow they had correlated that with success. And I was like, I'm going to kind of help you out here. Like that being famous or having a whole bunch of followers or a bunch of clicks or being popular doesn't have anything to do with success in the tattoo business or anywhere else. Some of the most successful people are in the world are recluses, or if they're not recluses, they're kind of nutty. They're kind of eccentric at best. If you've met some people like that, they don't respond like human beings. They send cat memes to you, and they're totally serious. And I kind of advise them to kind of get away from that. Why don't they start thinking more realistically? Because, a lot of famous people don't do well in life. And the more popularity and fame you get, the more light gets shed on you. And then, if you don't have clean hands, that's going to tear you up. That's going to tear you up, So it's like, I'm seeing a lot more of that where people are trying to seek fame and notoriety over recognition. And I don't understand that. I'm sure.
In my opinion, there is no point in seeking fame or recognition or approval or even to be understood. In fact, all of that, throw all that out.
Yeah, it's all gone. Right?
Seek to be the person that does the things that naturally lead to that, whether you get there or not. That's it. Yeah. Just seek to be the person that naturally does those things. And then you get there or you don't. It doesn't matter. It's
strange, the priorities of different people at this point in tattooing. I don't remember any of that, back in the day. You were just, you were in the shop and you were banging out tattoos and you made your $65 a day after 12 hours and you got some rest and did it again. And the idea of somebody knowing who you were, based on something good, that was pretty rare. It was usually based on something pretty bad.
Yeah.
So we were talking about, people trying to advance themselves and stuff in tattooing. And it's like, I'm becoming surprised how much that idea of like being popular recognition, they're correlating with success. And I was like, I don't know what to say. I probably, if you don't mind, use your, just don't. How about that? How about just don't do that? Don't. Yeah, just don't. That's good advice. That's great advice. I like that.
I think one thing I've been thinking a lot about this need, not just to get approval from other people, but to be understood by other people. I don't see you as someone that all that much cares whether or not someone understands why you do what you do.
I don't know.
You just kind of do what you do.
In a way, I don't. I'm human like everybody else. My feelings get hurt, when I get criticized. So, I try not to put myself in a position where I feel bad, obviously. But
right, we feel our feelings. But the thing is, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, go ahead. No.
If you want a life, if you want to create something that is truly authentic to you, and I think that will naturally lead to an extraordinary life, you have to be willing to be misunderstood by people that don't have the life that you want. And I think we go through life worried that people that don't have the life we want won't understand why we're doing what we're doing. And so we keep trying to justify our actions to people that will never understand.
Yeah, I suppose. In a roundabout way, I guess I kind of have to break that down a little bit. I'm kind of doing what I want to do no matter what. I've already done the work by the time I've decided to do it. And I very rarely announce what I'm doing to anybody, or I don't telegraph what I'm doing very much. I'm kind of secretive in nature, especially in business. And so when I do something, I do it. And I don't even look for fanfare or any of that at all ever. But yeah, absolutely. You get me thinking in a lot of different directions. Me and Joshua were talking about something like this a while back, just kind of reminiscing, like no one funded us. We didn't get money for anybody. We didn't seek out anybody's, approval. We just thought it up and did it. And we did it on our dime, on our risk and our sweat and our hard work, and not having any idea if it would work. We just did it. That's the entrepreneurial spirit.
You took a risk. You got to take a risk.
But we're both very fearless too. But we made a calculated risk and did it. And, I think of things like that where we've done, me and my wife, Erin is amazing. She's my partner. She's my love of my life. We do everything together. And she doesn't get half the recognition she deserves. She's the backbone of everything that I talk about. Because if you're calling me, you're going to probably talk to her, 9 times out of 10, because she's so much smarter than I am. But doing things that are out of the box and unorthodox are not, that's just kind of doctrine for me at this point, I think. It's just what I do. When I do things kind of in a weird way. And I think, but I don't telegraph it. It's not for promotion. It's not, I'm not trying to
Why do you do what you do?
I fucking want to do what I want to do. If I want to do it, I'll do it. I'll just think of a way to do it. It doesn't matter.
Reason.
Somebody should be paying me to think. And no one's done that yet. And, somebody out there is going to get smart and say, can I buy your brain? Because my wife has rented my brain to people before for a price. She's like, you can have 40 hours of his time this month. What's the project? And I've done that routinely.
Why don't you do consulting or coaching or something?
I don't know. It just doesn't, I'm in a weird boat. I don't do things I don't want to do. I would consider coaching, and I do coach. I do help people. I just don't. I don't advertise it. I don't televise it. I don't talk about it. It's done under anonymity. I would feel terrible. Me as a person, I would feel terrible for me if I did coach someone and they did really well and they did really great. For me, I don't need that. I don't need anything to come back. That bothers me. It's just my nature. Like,
it's the complete opposite of me. I have a coaching business.
Yeah, and I'm not dissing anybody.
I'm not saying there's anything right about what I do or wrong about what you do.
I don't. Right now in my life, I don't think that I would need that. I coach and talk to, people that I care about. I help them advance their businesses. I help them in any concern they want. Whether they're buying a building or they're opening a company or whether they have a new renovative idea of a product or they're starting whatever. I'll do everything in my power to help those people because it comes back.
It does.
But I do crazy shit though. That's for sure. There's no fucking doubt. I do weird shit. Yeah. And my business partners and the people around me have kind of got accustomed to it. So when I call them and I say, hey, here's the plan, they used to go, what the fuck? Now they're like, okay, run with it, do it. They don't even question it. And it's just the way it is. But I'm not too concerned with what people think. I am sometimes. I'm human. It's just like everybody else. Like I said, my feelings get hurt.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I think
it's about being aware of it and then doing it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but like I said, I'm still pretty old school. If you really have that much of a trouble, just fucking stand right there and let me know what you think. I'd be happy to hear you. That sounds great to me. Yeah. We could do that. I don't like conflict. I don't like to engage in arguments. I'm not seeking out anything like that. That's not the way I am. As a person, I'm not like that. I do know how to solve problems though, and I'm very good at taking care of them. So
you occur to me like you're this concept of givers and takers. Mm-hmm. And there's sort of a ratio of like, are you mostly a giver or mostly a taker? And they actually found there's this perfect ratio
really
to be successful in life is being an 80% giver and a 20% taker.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's kind of the perfect ratio to a successful life because, like you said, the more you give, the more comes back to you.
Maybe.
But if you only give, then you don't take it all, well, then you kind of give too much of yourself. And so there's this perfect ratio that they've found is about. Yeah.
I don't take, I earn, my father was a big guidance in my life, and he was a criminal, and he was a very dangerous person. And he taught me to be a criminal from the time I was a child. And rule number 1 to crime is if you're going to do something, go do it alone and don't tell anybody. You're probably home free. Rule number 2 is you can't con an honest man. Have you ever heard that? You can't
con an honest man.
You can't con an honest man. It's not possible.
I think I've heard it, yeah.
You have to steal from an honest man. And from the time I grew up, that was the golden rule for me. And I think of that constantly in business and in life, tattooing, anything. If you have clean hands and you're an honest man, they have to take from you. They can't offer you anything that's going to entice you. You can't offer something to an honest man. You can't say, hey, if you do this, you'll get that. Because an honest man's going to be like, that's okay. I'll earn it myself. Thank you. So I try to be an honest man as much as I possibly can all the time. And what I see is, to be honest, the tattoo business has made me jaded over the years. I have to, when I meet someone, I have to start discerning them and seeing what the deal is here. Is this a genuine person here? Or is this someone showing me a show so that they can take from me? Because it happens. It's happened in the past.
Yeah.
You know, I just got done with a deal where I worked on a project for like 6 months. It's a great project. It's a money maker for sure. The other person couldn't hold up their end and flopped out, you know, and whatever. And it's like, okay, business deals don't work sometimes. That's okay. You know, I get that, you know, but also the underlying, like, what happened here? How did this fall apart? You know, it's part of that studying. If I don't have something else to study, I'll study human nature or myself, or back engineer, if you will. So I do find a lot of times I do what I want to do. And because of the nature of me and my wife, we do it ourselves. We do almost everything ourselves that we can. You know, I might be working on a $1 million tattoo show and then go downstairs and redo the floor in the bathroom for no fucking reason, which that's what I did last night. You know, but I don't know how to do flooring. I don't fucking clue, you know.
We always say, me and my COO were like, we will shovel shit if that's what we have to do to get the job done. And I'm not above shoveling shit. Yeah.
I think when you get into a bigger scale of things, though, it's like, what an advantage this is for people like you and I that aren't afraid to shovel shit. Because when those opportunities do come around and we do have, you know, maybe you would call it a little bit of good luck or whatever, we, you know, for lack of a better way of saying it, we know how to capitalize on, and we understand that there's a time frame and a window to do it. And that intuitive thing is like, you know, always been something that's been very natural for me. You know, the initiative of things, the timing of things, especially in business and in tattooing. I would say that anybody that's really trying to feel out their tattooing and trying to make their business expand, or tattooing business expand, or anything like that, if they haven't been paying attention to the timing of when you do something, I think it's even more critical now than it's ever been, especially in advertising and marketing.
What are those areas now, for anyone listening, like, what do you see as like the areas to capitalize on in tattooing? Again, to leave tattooing a better place. We're not talking about taking advantage of here, but what are those areas?
One of the biggest critical mistakes that I'm seeing right now is revolving around marketing and advertising. And marketing and advertising has become something a lot easier to do and a lot more widespread, whether you're target marketing, geofencing, or whatever you're doing, whatever your method is. But what I'm seeing is a very total lack of timing that's causing more problems in the tattoo shops and problems for the artists than they understand. And they're just simply not seeing it from the perspective of the customer. For example, say you have a tattoo artist, they've been working very hard, they've been filling their schedule and filling their books, and now they're getting popular and their tattoos are looking great. They're getting more and more likes on Facebook, Instagram, so on. Is that the time to market? Is that the time to advertise while they're hot? I recently was working with a younger artist that was getting very, very popular, and they're doing very well. And they decided that now was the time to market, and they went ahead and did that. So they threw a bunch of money into Instagram, Facebook, all this stuff to boost their post and boost, look at how good I'm doing. Look at how wonderful I'm doing. And then they got exactly what they wanted. 50 new customers came in that month for that artist and said, I love your work. I think it's amazing. I saw you on Facebook and I would love to get a tattoo from you. And they went, oh, that'd be great. I'd love that. How's September 20th? Do you see? They marketed at the wrong time. And that person says, I don't want to wait till September 20th. Can't you get me in earlier? And they go, no, I can't. I'm sorry. And they go, okay. And they walked. So they actually lost a customer. See, they didn't get the customer. Instead of getting 50 new customers when they needed it, they disappointed 44 of them that didn't book with them and went to another artist and never gave it another thought. They'll always remember the artist that they couldn't book with. They may not remember the artist that tattooed them, but they'll always remember the one they couldn't book with. because when their name comes up, they go, oh, I tried to get a tattoo from them, but I couldn't. That timing is what I'm talking about in marketing, and especially with tattoo shops. They would have been so much better suited just riding that wave a little bit instead of trying to amplify it, just riding that wave and waiting. So now we just came through a period in this country because of the economics of what's going on in the United States. And it moved from east to west over the last June. People were calling me in Minnesota going, things dropped off. I'm losing customers. I don't know what's going on. And I was like, it's the economic downturn. Just hang in there. Hold on. And then it moved across to the West Coast. And over the course of the next 3 months, it finally came here. So people that had booked up and they had figured out what they were doing and come up with the process, marketing wasn't going to help them at all. They booked out too far. They were locked in too much. Their price was already knocked. The only way that they could achieve more money and get out of this financial slump that was coming was to work 7 days a week instead of 5, or 6 days a week instead of 4, or working 12 hours a day instead of 8. Do you see? Does that make sense? The timing of advertising and marketing, I think right now is something that's really just kind of being overlooked. They're going, oh, you're getting popularity? Get more popularity. I really think that's a tremendous mistake.
I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about business and what I love about marketing is you can kind of structure things. You can create the rules. You can create the structures to serve whatever your specific intention or goal is. Yeah. So if you're really booked out and you are thinking, oh, what do I do with this momentum that I have right now? You know, you could say, okay, I'm booked out 2 months. I'm going to stop booking. I'm going to force some scarcity into my system. Then I'm going to raise my prices. Then I'm going to slam on the gas.
There you go. That'd be great advice.
And that's how I would take that advantage of the momentum, so that but you're doing it strategically.
Yeah.
And then if you're not very booked up, then what are the strategic ways that you can funnel people into and around the ecosphere of your business?
Absolutely.
And so you're not directly like, hey, I have availability tomorrow, come buy from me.
Right.
Because
exactly.
no one really cares.
Yeah.
It's not really exciting. But what ways can you get out into your local community? What ways can you start to focus on your website, your SEO? We just led an SEO lesson today to over 100 tattooers, and their minds were blown.
That's awesome.
Their minds were completely blown as to what you can do with SEO, and then the results of that over a long period. Not even that long a period. Even in the first year, it pays for itself tremendously. It's incredible.
I agree with everything you said. It's wonderful. One of the things I advise people to do when they're in that mode is to just, why don't you stop focusing so much on your tattooing, and why don't you switch gears and find a second revenue stream? We just mentioned Garrett Groucho with his AI thing. The reason that he could do that is because he took that advice. He was like, okay, I'm booked, I'm good. I don't need any more propulsion. And I have this window of opportunity to focus on something else. So that gave him the opportunity to move into, I'm going to do an AI thing. I'm going to learn more about this. I'm going to figure out a way to share this. So, and that is going to create another revenue stream and another, nook, if you will. So it's like, one of the things I recommend is like I said, the goal that I was taught was get good enough at tattooing that you don't have to worry about tattooing anymore. And when you get there, figure out a way not to tattoo. And you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Because likely by the time you get there, you're going to be my age. You're going to be 50, and it's getting too old, and your hands hurt, and your wrists hurt, and shit doesn't work. And you're fucked up, and you got glasses getting thicker every year. If you can get to the point where you don't have to tattoo at that point, then you've made it. You've made it, and you can do other stuff. So it's like Garrett taking the risk of him putting that AI thing up there. I got to tell you, when we put that on the Evergreen, hey, look at this great class that we're going to get. Well, we got just as many terrible comments as we did good ones. There were people that were like, this is amazing. I can't wait to do it. There were a bunch of people that were like, this is bullshit. You should draw every day. And I've got a library.
But that's great. That's great marketing.
That's what I said. It was like,
great
wonderful.
Marketing is polarizing.
Yeah.
It's always going to be polarizing. And if you try to walk the middle and you just try to, how do I do this and make everyone happy? You're going to fail.
Right.
And so by him taking a stance and saying, actually, I've been tattooing a long time. I know how to fucking draw, but time is money. And so I'm going to use this tool to save me time so that I can make more money, because why not?
Yeah.
And taking a stance to teach that to people, knowing that it was going to piss other people off, it just pulls in your ideal clients even more. And that's what great marketing is all about.
It is just the way it's going to be. It's the way it's going to be. You have an endless reference catalog that's not limited by anything. Poof. I needed to design a t-shirt for a friend, which is something I absolutely do not have fucking time for, is shit like that. But I have to do this. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm already going into my old school ways. I'm like, okay, this is going to get reference material, drawing, or get the light table out and all this bullshit. Because I've designed shirts before, but it's been years. It's been 10 years. I go, no, I don't think so. I took a picture of the shirt that they did last year. I sent it to Garrett. I swear to God, 8 a.m. I said, Garrett, I need a new shirt like this. And I want a bird in it. Because I'm a bird guy. I want a bird in it. Have the robot.
Put a bird on it.
Put a bird on it. I don't have time for this shit. 8 minutes later, he sent me one of the most amazing t-shirt designs I could have never gotten that far. And he was like, here you go. What do you want to change about it? I was like, nothing. I sent it to the guy and I was like, publish it. We had a robot do it. And he was like, I don't care who did it. It looks fantastic. It's an endless resource. And I'm seeing the tattoos in my own shop with the 20 artists that I have, with the 2 shops that I have, just from a couple weeks ago, that's just escalating so fast because of things like the use of the AI, the proper use of the AI, the exhilaration of being able to have that endless reference calendar when a customer comes in. I'm even figuring it out. And I'm kind of dumb, like.
Are there any other, and we should probably wrap up in a minute here, but any other parts of tattooing, future things that you'd maybe say, like, be on the lookout for this, adapt for this, or be aware of this, anything that is coming up for you?
I mean, all of the above. Right now, I have no idea what's going to happen in the world, let alone tattooing. We're in a very sketchy time. Economically, safety-wise, the planet's pretty strange. And that's going to reflect on tattooing to one degree or another. I think we're in an election year, and we're going to have a little bit more of an economic downturn coming. Like, I think I mentioned this to you. Nobody knows what the BRICS going to do. They're talking about digital currency. It's a very real, very, very possible. So I think for most tattoo artists, we're in a hold fast and get it while you can scenario. For most tattoo artists around here, they need to hold on to what they've got. So what I'm telling people is this: reinforce the customer base that you have. If you're still seeking out new customers, you need to switch gears really fast. The reality of it is a good tattoo artist needs 100 tattoo customers a year. That's it. 100 tattoo customers a year, 3 times a year. That's 300 days. That's more days that I want to work. But that's the reality of it. And if you can reinforce your relations with your customers, right now's the time to do it. They're your biggest fan base.
I 100% agree.
So
the people that have bought from you in the past are the people that are the most likely to buy from you in the future.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of tattooers going back to the phone call, the old school. Hey, how are you? Thinking about you. Come and see me. And it's working.
I love it.
It's working.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's working. Yeah.
The cold call is working because, like, for some reason in this digital world right now, a phone call is important. A phone call is important. A message, I'll get to it when I want. But a phone call, like, oh shit, something's going on, right? So they're going back to the phone call.
Like, hey, I was just thinking of you. Hope you're well.
I'm just wondering how your tattoo is. Yeah. The phone call, just a simple cold call. How are you? I haven't heard from you in a while, and whatever, and see what's going on.
Problem is, most tattooers, I'll say, most tattooers aren't saving the data of their past clients. So they literally could have had this whole book of contacts that's money in the bank right there. And they have no way of reaching out to a lot of these people. And I've encountered that a lot with people I work with.
That's crazy to me. That is so crazy to me. Like, I'd say 60, 70% of tattooers don't have a CRM or any kind of booking software anyway. My God. And if they wanted to reach out to 300 past clients, they'd have no way of doing it. That blows my mind. That blows my mind that they don't have that. Like, we can't survive without it. The man that sent one email 3 months ago for the first time just had his mind blown by that. I cannot believe that. That blows my mind. Although I am not technologically adept, our corporation is super technologically adept. Like, we try to be on the cutting edge of everything.
As you should.
Years ago, it was
necessary.
Rev 23 changed everything for our company and our booking and made us more money and everything else. But, I'm not doing endorsing. I don't know if you're filming. That's cool. I don't care. We recently went to Keep the Fees, which is like really, really, really changed the game. Our artists are seeing a 25% increase in tips alone on a weekly basis. It's, $300, $400, $500, $600 just in tips alone. But it's made it so efficient and easy for the customer to buy that, and I'm not trying to endorse this company, but I've got to tell you, like straight up, when we were referred to Keep the Fees and when we looked at what they did, I've got to tell you, we were like, well, it's good, but it's not good enough for us. The owner of the company contacted us and was like, what do you mean it's not good enough? What do you need? And we started spitting things at him. We're like,
I actually had a similar conversation with them.
Did you?
Maybe about a year ago.
Yeah.
Because they reached out to me, obviously, as the finance guy in tattooing. And I was not impressed a year ago. No. I have heard that there have been some changes, and I'm all for any company that's taken the changes, particularly, and this is again a year ago, I'm sure they've changed, but they couldn't integrate with the booking software that I like to use. And I would not give up the booking software because it's too good. The other thing is that you can do that same feature on almost any POS system these days. You can pass the fees on to the client. It didn't feel terribly unique to me. So I wasn't sure other than the fact that they had like tattooing branding.
Well, I got to tell you, when the owner of the company talked to us and was like, what do you mean it won't do what you want it to do? And we started saying, we want it to do this and this and this and this and this. I think that he wasn't too responsive. And then we talked to a salesperson that looked at the amount of numbers and data going through our shops.
And then they listened.
Oh yeah. He called right back and he was like, we'll do everything you want to do. And
that's awesome.
We've been working with him for the last 3 months. We've reconfigured their entire software. It's all being done.
I would love to see it. I would love to see whatever changes. Because if it couldn't integrate, make my life easy with the systems, that was my main issue. But I met with their team.
Yeah,
I spoke with them.
Yeah. And I don't know.
Cool. I don't know. I would love to give it another look. And I'm not here to endorse or poo-poo anyone. I'm here to just give the facts and share the information.
I can't say enough for how much that company did. They're making the daily strides to accommodate our company. Cool. I'm not a cold-hearted businessman, but I don't care what your company's called or what color it is. All I'm paying for is service at the end of the day.
That's it.
And much like if I'm dealing with a vendor, all I want to hear is yes. That's the only answer that's required is just tell me yes and I'll keep paying you. At the point you can't fulfill my needs.
Here's my problem. I need it solved.
Yeah,
if you can't solve it, then I'm going to work with someone who can.
Yeah.
That's it.
And them showing me that they were willing to reconfigure their system to the point that they have. On a daily basis, I think we're going to become the cornerstone account for this entire company and the model that's going to be pushed forward because we've required so much from them. That tells me that maybe they went from a time in the past where they weren't going to budge very much to a point where they can get to a point where they can configure it for your company. And that's what I'm hoping happens for them, is they'll be able to take a look at your
I'll have another conversation with them.
I think I would. I'd be open-minded and see what they say. We couldn't be happier with the system that they've created for us. I got to tell you.
That's all that matters.
So those kind of innovations are around the corner all over. So it's like when you tell me that somebody's like, well, I didn't have the number or the information, I'm a gasp. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
I know.
Every customer that came through the door of my shop already cost me $100 to get them there, and I want them back.
Yeah, your cost to acquire a client is $100. Your lifetime value of a client is $1,500. For every $100 you spend, you make $1,400.
I want them back.
Boom.
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Money.
Yeah.
Well, Riley, we got to wrap up. This was everything I wanted this conversation to be.
Excellent.
So thank you for your time.
Thank you, man.
I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
If you haven't, I do have to promote the Evergreen Tattoo Convention.
Absolutely.
Tattoo Invitational. Yeah. It was the best convention I've ever been to. I'm only saying that because it genuinely was. It was so much fun, and I really hope to join you in September. You're doing one in Portland, yeah?
The 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're going to be in Hillsboro, Oregon. Hillsboro is a beautiful little town about 10 minutes from Portland, Oregon. Portland, we don't want to do that. Hillsboro, awesome. Yeah, and
perfect. I want to be there. Yeah. I'm excited for it. So you can. You want to share anything for people to check that out? Any websites, Instagram accounts you want people to check out?
I don't know if we even have anything available at this point. We're kind
Look
of,
at that.
we're kind of
Marketing.
We're eccentric like that. This is about timing.
I'll be talking about it on my Instagram, so you can find out.
Yeah.
But obviously, you can check out Evergreen Tattoo Invitational Instagram.
Absolutely.
And awesome.
Well,
Super cool.
Don't forget the Boise
Thanks again.
208 Tattoo Festival happening in June.
And the Boise 208. Yeah.
I really hope you'll teach a class in Portland. If we can get you down there, I would love that.
I will.
Oh,
That's
man.
my birthday's on the 10th of September,
Great.
so
We'll
I'll
go,
be there.
We'll go to Top Golf. We'll have fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Super fun. Cool.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. You're awesome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. Again, I just want to prompt that if you got some value out of this conversation, please go and leave us a rating and a review on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you saw this podcast. It really helps me out and it really helps other people to find this podcast. I want more people to have these types of conversations around money so that we can all be more free and at ease and abundant and able to create the lives that we really want to live. So please share this and rate and review. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.